I never thought I'd wake up to the sound of a demolition crew ripping apart my wheelchair ramp. But then again, I also never thought I'd have an HOA president so unhinged that she'd hire contractors to destroy my property while claiming it was her house. Karen, the self-proclaimed dictator of the neighborhood HOA, had made it her personal mission to get rid of my wheelchair ramp. She had complained about it for months, saying it ruined the neighborhood aesthetic. She had sent fines, nasty letters, even tried to get the city involved. But she wasn't prepared for the one thing stopping her plan, the fact that my ramp was fully legal and protected under disability laws. But instead of accepting reality like a rational human being, Karen did something so insane, so blatantly illegal that it left the entire neighborhood in shock. She hired a demolition crew and told them that my house was hers. I had no idea any of this was happening at first. It was an early Saturday morning, and I was asleep in my bedroom when the sound of power tools, hammering, and wood splintering jolted me awake. At first, I thought someone was doing renovations next door, but as the noise grew louder and closer, a sense of dread settled in my stomach. I grabbed my phone, rolled my wheelchair toward the window, and froze. Outside, in my own driveway, a full construction crew was at work, tearing apart my wheelchair ramp plank by plank. A man in a hard hat was barking orders, workers were hauling debris into a dumpster, and my once sturdy ramp was now nothing more than a pile of splintered wood. Panic surged through me. I threw open my front door and wheeled outside. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" One of the workers turned, blinking in surprise. Are you the new owner?" "What? I am the owner. This is my house." The man visibly paled. He looked at his clipboard, then back at me. "Wait, what?" "We were told the owner wanted this ramp removed before renovations started." My blood ran cold. "Who told you that?" Before he could answer, a familiar voice cut through the morning air. "I did." And there she was, Karen. She stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, looking completely unbothered by the chaos she had caused. "Karen," I shouted, still in shock, "you did this?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, relax, it's just a ramp. It was an eyesore and I finally decided to take action. You weren't doing anything about it, so I took care of it for you. You should be thanking me." I could barely process what I was hearing. "You hired a crew to destroy my property? How is that even legal?" Karen scoffed. "Oh, please, it's not your property. It's part of the front aesthetic of the neighborhood, and the HOA has full authority over external modifications. Your ramp was never approved and it looked awful, so I fixed the problem." I stared at her, mouth open in disbelief. "Karen, I have permits. I have federal protections. You just violated the Americans with Disabilities Act." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. "No, I didn't. The HOA regulations don't override federal law, you lunatic." The construction workers were starting to murmur among themselves, clearly realizing they had made a massive mistake. One of them, the guy with the clipboard, took a nervous step toward me. "Sir, if this is actually your property, we might have a problem." I snapped my attention to him. "Damn right you do. Did you even check property records before tearing into my house?" "Well," the worker grimaced, we were given documents. She said she was the homeowner. She signed off on everything." Karen smiled smugly. "That's right, I did. She had no idea how badly she'd just screwed herself." "So let me get this straight," I said slowly, my anger building. "You pretended to own my house, forged documents, and hired a demolition crew to destroy a federally protected accessibility structure?" Karen waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You'll be fine. Just build a new one, a smaller one, a nicer-looking one." I laughed bitterly. "Karen, do you even understand what you've done? This isn't just some petty HOA dispute. You just committed fraud, destruction of property, violations of multiple disability laws." She still didn't get it. "Oh, please, it's not that serious." I pulled out my phone. "Oh, it will be, because I'm calling the cops." Karen's expression finally shifted. "Wait, what? No, you can't. We can resolve this through the HOA board." "Oh no, Karen!" I tapped my screen. "You wanted this to be official? Now it's official." She lunged forward, trying to grab my phone, but I rolled back before she could reach me. "This is completely unnecessary. I was just helping the community." "Helping the community by committing felony-level fraud?" I shook my head. "Good luck explaining that to the judge." The foreman, now looking pale as a ghost, turned to Karen. "Ma'am, did you really lie about owning this property?" Karen hesitated. "Well, I mean, because if you did, that means we illegally destroyed a private structure. That makes us liable too." And just like that, the entire crew realized they had been dragged into Karen's mess. One of the workers swore under his breath. "We need to call our legal team." "Yeah, and I need to call my lawyer," I snapped, "because Karen, you just bought yourself the biggest lawsuit of your miserable life." The moment the police dispatcher answered, Karen's face twisted into pure panic. "Wait, wait," she shrieked, lunging toward me again. "You don't have to do this. We can work this out." I rolled back, keeping my phone just out of her reach. "Oh, we're way past working this out, Karen. You just destroyed my property and committed felony fraud. The only person you should be negotiating with is your lawyer." Her face paled. "Felony? You're being dramatic." I turned away from her and spoke into the phone. "Yes, I need officers at my address immediately. A woman has illegally hired a demolition crew under false pretenses, and they've destroyed a federally protected wheelchair ramp on my property." The dispatcher didn't hesitate. "Sir, we're sending officers now. Stay on the line." Karen let out a frustrated scream. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "Karen, shut up," one of the construction workers snapped. "You told us you own this house. We could all be facing legal trouble because of you." Karen turned on them, her voice going shrill. "Well, how was I supposed to know you'd be incompetent enough to tear down the wrong house?" The foreman stared at her like she had lost her mind. "You signed the work order. You gave us the wrong documents." Before she could dig herself any deeper, we all heard the wailing of approaching sirens. Karen spun around like a trapped animal looking for an escape. "Oh no," she muttered. "Oh no, no, no." It was too late. 2 police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. Officers stepped out, their hands already hovering near their holsters as they took in the scene. The demolished wheelchair ramp, the scattered debris, the visibly distressed construction workers, and Karen looking like she was about to bolt. One of the officers, a tall man with a stone-cold expression, walked up to me. "Are you the homeowner?" "Yes," I said, gesturing to what was left of my wheelchair ramp. "And that woman? She falsified ownership documents, hired a crew, and had them illegally demolish part of my home." Karen jumped in immediately. "That's a lie! This is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to enforce community standards." The officer turned to her, unimpressed. "Ma'am, step away from the homeowner. We'll sort this out." She crossed her arms. "I don't have to listen to you. I run the HOA." The officer's brow twitched. "Ma'am, the HOA has zero authority over private property. If you don't cooperate, this is going to get a lot worse for you." By now, the construction crew was tripping over themselves to tell the officers everything. "She told us it was her house. She signed off on everything," one worker blurted. "We asked for proof, but she gave us fake documents," another added. "We had no idea it was illegal. We were just following orders," the foreman said, palms up defensively. The officer nodded grimly. "That's fraud, destruction of property, and criminal misrepresentation. We'll need everyone's statements." Karen's confidence crumbled. This is all a huge misunderstanding." "You know what else is a misunderstanding, Karen," I said, finally letting a smirk creep onto my face. "The fact that you thought you'd get away with this." One of the officers stepped forward. "Ms. Davis, please place your hands behind your back." Karen lost it. "No, you can't do this," she shrieked, trying to back away. "I'm the victim here." But the officer didn't hesitate. He grabbed her arms, turned her around, and snapped handcuffs onto her wrists. The neighborhood had gathered by this point, and the whispers and murmurs turned into full-on applause. Karen was officially arrested. But that was just the beginning. Once she was hauled into the back of the police cruiser, the real legal battle began. Because not only did she destroy my property, but she did it in direct violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which meant massive legal consequences. The officers took my official statement, along with every single witness who saw what happened. The construction crew turned over their fraudulent work orders, and even the HOA board started to panic, realizing how deep they were in this mess. I didn't just press criminal charges. I filed a civil lawsuit so big that it would leave Karen financially ruined for life. And that wasn't even the best part. As I was working with my lawyer, my next-door neighbor approached me. "Hey," he said, "you're gonna love this." He pulled out his phone and my jaw dropped. He had filmed everything, from the moment Karen lied to the crew, to the demolition, to her freak-out when I caught her. It was all on camera. "This is evidence," my lawyer said, grinning. "Karen is done for." The footage went viral in our community. People were furious at what she had done. Her reputation was destroyed overnight. And when we got to court, that footage was the nail in the coffin. Karen sat there, pale and shaking, as the judge reviewed the overwhelming evidence against her. The fraudulent documents, the testimonies, the video proof. It was all too much. She was found guilty on all counts. And when the judge read the settlement amount she owed me, her screech could probably be heard in space. Because Karen, she didn't just lose her case, she lost everything. The courtroom was packed the day Karen's case reached its climax. By now, the entire town knew what she had done. News outlets had picked up the story. Social media had obliterated whatever reputation she had left. Even the HOA board had distanced themselves from her, hoping to avoid going down with the sinking ship. But no matter how much Karen wanted to weasel her way out of this, the evidence was unshakable. The judge tapped his gavel, glancing at the stack of witness statements, the footage from my neighbor, and the work orders with Karen's forged signature. He let out a heavy sigh and turned his attention to her. "Ms. Davis, I have presided over many cases of property destruction, but this is outright malicious fraud." Karen, seated at the defendant's table, was visibly trembling. Her lawyer had given up arguing weeks ago, and now all that was left was to decide her punishment. The judge looked over at my attorney. "Mr. Carter, the damages to your property were significant. Do you have an estimate of your financial losses?" My lawyer, a grinning powerhouse of a man, stood up confidently. "Yes, Your Honor. In addition to the cost of demolishing and rebuilding the wheelchair ramp, we have loss of property value, legal fees, emotional distress, and the violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which carries heavy federal penalties." He held up a thick stack of paperwork. "We are seeking a total of $2,500,000 in damages." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Karen nearly fainted. $2.5 million? She screeched. "That's absurd." The judge gave her a cold look. "Absurd? Ms. Davis, you fraudulently hired a demolition crew and attempted to have a federally protected accessibility structure destroyed under false pretenses. Given the blatant violations at hand, Mr. Carter's lawsuit is not only justified, it's generous." Karen turned to her now utterly exhausted lawyer. You have to stop this. You have to do something." He simply shook his head. "Karen, they have video proof. They have signed documents. There is nothing to stop." "You're done." Her mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. The judge straightened in his seat. "Miss Davis, I have reviewed all evidence and I find you guilty on all counts. You are hereby ordered to pay Mr. Carter the full $2,500,000 in damages. Furthermore, your fraudulent actions constitute a violation of federal law, and additional criminal charges will be filed separately." Karen let out a horrified wail, clutching at the desk in front of her. "No, you can't do this to me." The judge was unmoved. "The law has done this to you, Ms. Davis. Court is adjourned." The gavel slammed down. Karen collapsed into her chair, her face ashen and lifeless. But the real fun? That came after the verdict. Karen, having no way to pay a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, was forced to sell everything she owned. Her car, her furniture, her prized luxury handbag collection, all auctioned off to cover the damages. But even that wasn't enough. Her precious home, the one she lorded over the neighborhood for years, was seized and put on the market. And guess who bought it? Me. The day the sale was finalized, I made sure Karen was there to see it. I stood on the sidewalk watching as movers carried her belongings out of the house, dumping them onto the curb. She stood there, her hair a mess, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "You can't do this," she whispered. "You can't." I folded my arms and grinned. "Oh, but Karen, I did." She let out a guttural sound of rage, hands clenching into fists. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem, is it?" I said cheerfully. "Maybe you should have thought of that before you destroyed my wheelchair ramp." Karen looked ready to explode, but with the entire neighborhood watching, she had nowhere to go and no power left to abuse. She stormed off down the street, humiliated, broke, and without a place to call home. And as I watched her go, I turned toward my newly acquired house. It needed some work, sure, but I already had plans. First, I was building a brand new wheelchair ramp, one twice as big and even more visible than before. Second, I was hosting a massive neighborhood barbecue to celebrate the downfall of the worst HOA president in history. And third, well, I made sure to send Karen a copy of the invitation just to rub it in.